excited to be here today because we are pleased to be finally having the opportunity to tell you the story about Bright Beginnings. The women with me are all founders of Bright Beginnings and each have played an important role in its history. Bright Beginnings was founded by the Junior League of Washington, or is a creation of the Junior League of Washington. And the Junior League is a membership organization of women that promote trained volunteers for the betterment of the community, particularly women and children.
And I'm happy to jump in and expand a little bit on our founding history and the Junior League of Washington's role.
Thanks, Marty.
So in the early and mid-1980s, the Junior League of Washington undertook a major community needs assessment. The Junior League was eager to create a signature project that combined the Junior League's volunteers and funding in the community. And the result of that community needs assessment was a conclusion that the homeless population, and particularly homeless families, mothers and children in particular, were not served well in the DC area. Many lived in shelters at that time, and at 8 o'clock every morning the mothers had to leave the shelters and wander the streets of Washington with their children all day. There was a complete absence of quality child care. So the Junior League decided that we wanted to deal in some way with grappling with that problem with our volunteers and trying to address it directly. So an opportunity came along. In the Federal Register there was a grant notice, and I caught it and picked up the phone and called Ruth and called Sarah, and we put together a group of 5 of us, basically a proposal, and submitted this application completely written by volunteers to the Department of Health and Human Services. And we won the grant. We were one of 3 grantees nationwide. We received $200,000, $100,000 for each of 2 years to get Bright Beginnings launched.
I was a speech pathologist and the director of the Child Find program for Fairfax County Schools for several years, and did work with children who had special needs. And so I had actually just stepped away from that career into a corporate career, and so for me this was a way of continuing my work with children, which I was really looking forward to at that time.
Well, one of the reasons that I was involved when Marty called me was that child development research is my profession, and I work for a research firm, and so I had a lot of experience writing government grants, so they brought me in to do the grant writing. And of course child development is obviously something that's very near and dear to my heart, so that's why I got involved.
They required a collaboration. So the Junior League has a long history of partnership with other organizations in the community, and the National Child Daycare Center, Conserve, the Community of Hope, a number of organizations that we had worked with for many, many years, where our volunteers were in placements doing community service, came to the table with us as collaborating partners and put their name as wanting to work with the Junior League on this project.
So let me talk a little bit about how the Junior League evolved over time. As Marty mentioned, we applied for a grant, and she talked about the challenges that went along with that and the teams that we had to put together. But it soon became clear that the Junior League really wanted to be and needed to be the leadership role for this project. One of the early things that they did was establish a 5K race. And it has gone on for years and years and years. First year it earned $6,000, and it now earns in excess of about $66,000 each year. Coincident with our early days, we found that we wanted to make sure that from a legal standpoint that the Junior League of Washington and Bright Beginnings were separate legal entities, and so we felt that it was really critical that we establish a 501c3 nonprofit organization in order to provide us an independence that we felt would be important for our futures. We were so invested in it that we really wanted to see it move forward in a way that was consistent with our vision. So we stepped forward and we established a Bright Beginnings Committee within the Junior League to really just help put together some of the very grassroots things that Marty mentioned about. We needed people to help us find carpeting for the center. We hired, we found a pro bono architect, actually 2 architects, who were so helpful to us. We needed to find an attorney who then became a pro bono organization that stuck with us over time and really helped us develop our articles of incorporation and get set up as a 501c3.
Well, once we got the grant and established the nonprofit, we began looking for a location, and that's not easy to find in Washington. And we were lucky that we had Helen Taylor on in our partnership, and she was the director of the National Child Daycare Association at the time, and she later became the director of Head Start nationally in the Department of Health and Human Services. But she suggested that we find that we look at the Phyllis Wheatley Y. And it is a historic YWCA on Rhode Island Avenue, which is now in the very trendy Shaw neighborhood, but at the time was in a much more low-income neighborhood. And one of the things that was really appealing to us about that site was they had a big playground.
Yeah, they did.
And it's really hard to find playgrounds in Washington for child care programs. So as Sarah had said, we were able to get pro bono help from attorneys and architects. Jim Bailey was one of the key architects who provided the design. His wife was a former president of the Junior League. And then we hired a construction firm and began construction, divided the space into areas, 4 areas for children, children from 2.5 to 5 years of age. We hired staff. Connie Daniel was our first director, and we began that whole process. Then once we began operating, we were serving 26 children in the space. And we provided a high-quality early childhood education program, and we also provided meals and snacks, outdoor play, and nap time. And one of the things that was kind of surprising to us was how much the children slept during nighttime, because the shelters were so noisy. And so Bright Beginnings gave them a safe and quiet place to rest in the afternoon. We had our grand opening in December of 1991. The dedication of the center was at a ceremony at the Phyllis Wheatley Y, and Mayor Sharon Pratt Kelly, who was mayor at the time, came and spoke. And Ginger Sullivan, who was the wife of the, at the time, Secretary of Health and Human Services, was also a special guest.
And so as we moved into looking for a new space, the ability to be able to serve infants and toddlers was a prime driver. And again, looking for a place was almost, it is a monumental task. Anyway, we moved to North Capitol Street. It was vacant at that time, but it had an already existing child care center there that had rooms that had served infants and toddlers. And not only that, but we could expand the number of children we served up to 52. And we occupied that facility for a little over a year, and then the fact that it was vacant was an issue, and we had to move because they decided to renovate it and to get new tenants. So we had to move.
We were evicted.
We were essentially being true to the commitment of the board. We are looking at a place where we can serve more children, particularly incorporate infants and toddlers into our program. We did another citywide search to try to find a space, and we identified the Perry School, and this was due to an associate of Marty's, Palma Gillicuddy, who was the director of this association, or of this community service organization that wanted to create a community center in a low-income area of the city. And the Perry School was gutted it was back to the studs and huge columns. And we took a look at it, and we talked to them, and they wanted to have a daycare center, essentially, for the families in the surrounding neighborhoods, but would talk to us about bringing Bright Beginnings there as long as we reserved a certain number of slots for neighborhood families. So after protracted negotiations and lots of other types of efforts to find a space, we signed a lease with the Perry School to locate Bright Beginnings here at the Perry School. And Bright Beginnings became a part of the Perry School community center, really, that had an array of community-based organizations that are tenants there, not the least of which is the clinic downstairs, so that there are medical services. One of the reasons why we moved into the Perry School, other than being a terrific location for us, was because we thought as we want to serve more children and their families, we could learn from them. We could go to school on what it would be like to own a building, have a early childhood education center and adjunctive services that would make the lives of our parents a whole lot easier. And we moved in 1997, I think, or 98. And we have been here since then. This stability has provided us with opportunities to apply for accreditation like the NACCE accreditation, because you have to be located in a same site for, I think, 5 years or more. We moved into the Perry School, and we grew our school so that we are now serving 87 children here. And it is such a joyful place. Social workers around the city will tell you we can always tell a Bright Beginnings child. We instituted the evening care program because the Perry School itself was the ending time was, I think, 3:30 or so, or 4:30. So we had the evening, and many of our families were on shift work and getting back into the job market. It was important that we were able to take care of their children when they needed us to be. And so we now have an evening program that accommodates, we're almost full for that program as well.
And we were gifted by the wonderful leadership of Betty Jo Gaines, who was the director of Bright Beginnings for 15 years, who passed very sadly this year, who really provided leadership and stability and a connectedness to the community that was invaluable, grew in so many different ways.
This expansion was very much a part of her vision.
Absolutely. I mean, we would not be where we are today without Betty Jo's vision and commitment and just ongoing stability and leadership that she provided to Bright Beginnings. I just want to make one point on one of the hallmarks of the Bright Beginnings Board of Directors over the years, and as the board has changed and evolved, as people have come and gone, there has been a real commitment, as referenced before, to being a working board, but we have been gifted by people who have had vision and who have had the courage, in a real sense, to see what needed to be done and the ability to make hard decisions. Some of them have been a little bit risky decisions, more than we've done it in a very thoughtful way. We've been very careful, prudent stewards of the financial resources. When our donors give us money, we take so much responsibility for making sure that every dollar is spent properly. But it is really, I think, been a tribute to the core value and core mission.
You know, Ruth is our resident expert in childhood education and human development, and the importance of high quality early childhood education, for human growth. But you can talk about the programmatic improvements that we've made and the very high bar we've set for the curriculums that we've used at Bright Beginnings.
As we know from child development research, the first 5 years of life are critically important for children, and it's a period of rapid brain development, and it's very influenced by environmental factors, and certainly homelessness and the trauma that accompanies homelessness are some of those factors. So these first 5 years are especially critical for low-income children, and it's been shown that high-quality early childhood education programs can have a profound effect on improving those children's lives, getting them ready for school, and even having long-term positive effects in their lives. So from the beginning, we have wanted, as Nancy said, to have a high-quality program, and that includes having a research-based curriculum, small class sizes, low staff-child ratios, and well-qualified staff. And in addition to meeting DC licensing standards and Head Start performance standards, we've also been able to get accreditation by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which is even a higher level of standard. And we've had that certification for a number of years. We have a curriculum here, the high scope curriculum that we used. It's one of the most widely used curriculum in Head Start. We began with another curriculum, but after a couple of years, the parents felt like they wanted something that was more focused on school readiness. So we switched to high scope, and it does have the research that supports it in terms of promoting school readiness and having positive long-term effects. And we provide a lot of training to our staff in the use of that curriculum. Bright Beginnings really is a two-generation program. We serve both the children and the parents. And research is showing now even more that involving the whole family can have even more effects on the future of the children and preventing the intergenerational transmission of poverty and homelessness. So we do provide services to the parents. It includes help with housing, help with job training, employment assistance, nutrition advice, parent education, early literacy training, activities parents can do with their children. We have a group that is working with parents on nutrition and healthy eating and exercise. And as Marty mentioned, parents are involved in the governance of the program through the Policy Council, where they can have input. And they're also involved in the classroom as volunteers. So they can work with their own children, and they can model the behaviors of the teachers too.
Marty can talk about more specifically about the role that Head Start has played, the Head Start funding has played in Bright Beginnings, because it has been absolutely critical to our financial health
send
and
that
well-being.
tape up to the hill.
Right.
No, seriously.
Right.
So actually, when we applied for the original funding for Bright Beginnings, we said in our application that we wanted to create a program that would be based on a Head Start model. Our first Head Start funding, I believe, came into us in about 1996, and it enabled us at $600,000, I think, in that first year. It enabled us to really create stability, as Nancy alluded to before, in our funding base that we had not had before, and it allowed us to serve more children. We became a delegate agency of the United Planning Organization, and we stayed connected as a UPO delegate agency for a significant number of years. We had an expansion in 2002. We applied for and got early Head Start funding, and then again in the one other tranche of Head Start money became available, and we went and got it. But I think it's very interesting that our a real significant development in 2013 occurred when the Board of Directors voted to seek funding from the Head Start program independently as a direct grantee, as opposed to being a delegate of another organization. And that has catapulted us in such a new direction and ability to serve even more children. We've been able to serve infants and a developmental program for early childhood Head Start, and we've been able to start a home visiting program, particularly servicing the needs and serving the needs of families who are housed at DC General. So the number of children that Bright Beginnings is able to serve today just catapulted into the future. And in fact, that last grant really has given us the courage to say, we want to move forward even further and open a second center in Anacostia, so we can bring child care to a community that is very, very short on high quality child care for the parents and families in that area.
And once we did that, we thought, okay, now we need to serve more children. So we went out and decided that we would try to build another center. And this time we wanted to locate the center across the river where the transitional housing is. Once you leave the shelters, you have to move into transitional housing. And most of those transitional housing units are in Ward 7 and 8. And so we looked for a space in Ward 7 and 8 because access, again, is so important. So it's on bus lines or metro lines. And our parents need to be able to get their children there because frequently they are carrying along 3 children with them. So it is really important that it is easy to get to where we are. And so we looked for a space. We found a space on 4th Street right across from Ballou High School. Thank you, Ballou High School. We bought the property earlier this year in 2016, and we are about to close on that property. We're about to close on the loan that we need to finance the expansion. So the future is just, it is just a bright star for us. And we are so excited to be able to look forward. You know, all of this discussion has been about our history, and that's important. But what we are really building up to is how excited all 4 of us are for the future of Bright Beginnings, and also the need and the stability we are bringing to the parents and the children who need it so much. And so we are pleased, you know, and excited to move forward, and are again happy to have had this opportunity to talk about its history. And you can tell from where we are, with all the children's noises that have been around, that we really are right here at the Perry School and are surrounded by the children that are here every day.
The new school is going to be in addition to the Perry School. And so in many ways we're now going to have the challenges of managing two school buildings, 2 programs, but it's one that we are, as everyone has said, sort of joyfully looking forward to, and it's been a vision of ours for a while. It has been incredibly difficult to find a location and a space that really meets the needs of our families, most of all, and then would work for the child population that we're trying to serve. But this is so wonderful to have an opportunity to capture where we've been, the challenges that we've seen, the support that we've had from the community. We have, I don't want to say the word is lucky because there's been a lot of hard work that has gone into this program, but we have been very blessed with some people coming to us at the right time with the right skill sets.
If you're a part of the community, you need to be able to provide a life experience and access to services and opportunities for everyone, and that Bright Beginnings helps us do that, starting at a time in human development where we know an intervention is most important.
I think for me, being a member of the founding board and the founding president, and starting the setup at the first center, to be working with people who are really committed to doing this, getting it off the ground, the commitment of the Junior League to provide the money for the renovations, and they've provided dollars for us all through the history of the organization, and to provide real service in the community that was needed. We've all had professional jobs where we're in offices and doing arcane things, but to really have this interaction with children and families has been very meaningful and a real blessing for all of us.
And Bright Beginnings has really been always a very important component in my own family's lives. My children came to Bright Beginnings from the earliest days, and when they were preschoolers and in school and in elementary school. And one of my most satisfying moments is the fact that my daughter is in the Junior League of Washington, has been a volunteer at Bright Beginnings, and takes such satisfaction herself in having the experience of coming here, meeting the families, serving the families, reading to the children, doing activities that continue to make a difference. So I think it's important to say Bright Beginnings has given all of us so much more than we have ever touched or given Bright Beginnings and the families we serve.
You know, when I think of part of what has inspired me to stay so engaged with this, when I talk with people about Bright Beginnings, I challenge them, because so many of us give money to programs internationally, outside of the Washington area, but it always comes back to me that this is the nation's capital, and to think that we have a waiting list of over 200 children who do not have a place like Bright Beginnings to go to for school every day and feel safe and have education and have good nutrition and have their parents wrapped in what is Bright Beginnings. Honestly, you know, I think it's a huge challenge to all of us that this is the nation's capital, for heaven's sakes. We have to do better for our children, not just here, but around the country. And so that has always been really critical to me when I think of where my personal dollars are going. I want to see the children in my community prosper, and I want to see our nation's capital be, you know, the bright shining star that it should be, and the demonstration program for other cities to emulate. So, that has always been really important to me as I try to encourage people to give to Bright Beginnings. I mean, this is your neighborhood. This is your neighborhood. These are your families. These are the children who are not going to be on the streets because they're going to have had a good start in their education here at Bright Beginnings.
I have to say that one of the most exciting days of my life, really, and experience as president of the Junior League of Washington was getting to sign and oversee the filing of the Articles of Incorporation, which created Bright Beginnings as an independent 501c3 organization in the district.
So as Marty said, April 29th, 1990 was a very big day for us.
Very big day.